Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to As-Sahwa's face-to-face podcast. We have been requested to do another podcast regarding the elections. So without wasting any time, we really want to get into this discussion about the issue of the permissibility of voting, if there is a permissibility in voting. My guest today with me is Sawar. Brother Sawar, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh.
Tell me a bit about yourself, my brother.
Bismillah, alhamdulillahi wa salatu wa salamu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So basically, akhi, I'm no scholar. I wouldn't consider myself a student of knowledge. I'm just a basic Muslim, alhamdulillah. I studied a bit with a few teachers, alhamdulillah, studied Arabic language and etc. Studied bits of fiqh and also studied a few things on my own, just read a few books.
Okay.
So
how long have you been studying, would you say? Even if it's on and off, what would you say? At least 10 years of study, at least?
Not full time.
Yeah,
I'll say,
of course.
It's mainly been part time. Maybe maybe nearly 10 years. Maybe more, maybe over 10 years. Alhamdulillah.
Jazakallah khair. On the issue of knowledge, very very briefly. People have been studying for years, and
Yes.
scholars
Yes.
became scholars because of their traveling and their studying. And if it wasn't for their sacrifice of their time and their effort, we wouldn't have access to that knowledge, to those books, to those fatawas today that we are looking at. Today we have the wonderful debates on WhatsApp groups, on online, and many other platforms, in TikTok and what have you. The only problem with this kind of knowledge is it brings people who we may brand as keyboard warriors.
Yeah.
We are studying religion, our religion, Islam, in a language which is foreign to Islam, i.e.
Sahih.
English.
Sahih.
Now, classical ulama have had many different opinions. Okay? Now, it wasn't a case for them to start making takfir upon each other and start telling them that you're no longer a Muslim because of this fact or that fact. They will say,
Sahih.
so-and-so has his opinion, I have my opinion, and we'll leave it on the day of judgment.
Sahih.
Brother Sawar, we are in a time where we have lots of knowledge, let's be honest. Lots of books are printed,
Yeah.
and we have access to ulama from all around the world.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
So my first question is, in your opinion, do you believe there is a lot of confusion amongst Muslims when it comes to fatwas, or is it just a lack of knowledge?
I think that there is more confusion, in our time, because people, they don't sit down and, give time to take in knowledge. People are watching like clips. People watch, then the clips. I remember previously, it used to be like we used to listen to on cassettes. I used to listen to one, one speech, one lecture many times, so and try to understand it, because we had limited access. So we listened to one many times.
Yeah.
But now, now we have very short clips. It's got to the point where now people only watch knowledge for like,
1 minute,
2 minutes. So that's the kind of knowledge people are taking. So they don't get to listen to the whole stories. People are listening to clips. That's a sound bites. That's where people are taking their knowledge from. That's why, I think the confusion amongst the youth has increased, and and the controversies has increased as well in our times.
We're speaking about the issue of the elections. Now, let's just run through some of the arguments. The first set of arguments, and the ulama have difference of opinion, okay, and we have to accept this.
Sahih.
The first argument, should I say, would be mainly on the issue of democracy as a nizam, as a system. because it's for the people, by the people, etc., it means you are excommunicating the rule of Allah. So the famous ayat of Quran, those who do not rule by Allah are dhalim, fasik, kafir, sinners, non-believers. You know, how can you get involved in such a system if these people are not implementing the Sharia of Allah? In fact, you're doing it the opposite. You're supporting a people who are saying we don't need Allah in our life. What would you say to that?
I think first of all we have to understand what is how do we understand the democratic system from the Islamic perspective.
Sure.
Okay, and in Islam, obviously, we use the Sharia to judge. The Sharia given us principles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now there's a very important principle that we look at the entire. We look at our interaction with the system. First of all, democracy. What is the definition of democracy? First of all, okay, people have differed amongst themselves. People, the political scientists, they've differed with the definition of democracy. What does it imply, and what does it mean? Okay, so there is no fixed definition for the term democracy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have to see what is our interaction with this system, with this aspect of ruling.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a famous principle in Sharia. It's called العبرة في العقود بالمقاصد والمعاني لا بالألفاظ والمباني.
You're gonna have to translate that now.
Okay. Okay. It means that we look at the intent and the meaning behind our interaction with this particular aspect
Okay.
of the political system,
Right.
which is the democratic process. We're not concerned with the wording. We're not concerned with the classical definition. We're concerned with our interaction with the democratic process. For example, I'll give you another example as well. Say, for example, now wearing Nike.
Mm-hmm.
The word Nike is what it refers to is a Greek god for victory.
Right. Yeah.
Now, can we say that wearing Nike now is shirk? Because we are wearing something, maybe the Greeks, they associated calling to this god as for victory.
Well, you can apply that to the months of the year because August and January and all these kind of.
I mean, different aspects of life. Yeah. You can apply these things, for example. So, but what we do, the Sharia looks at the urf, as it takes the urf, the current, if it's lost its significance. Yeah.
Fair enough.
And it looks at the urf as well. What does it mean? That's just the one example.
Yeah.
So Nike it no longer has the significance of religious. It doesn't have a religious connotation to it.
Okay.
It's just a brand. It's a custom.
Right.
Yeah, nobody believes that it means it's a god. Yeah.
Yeah.
It has any barakah or brings any blessings or anything like that. It's just a customary something that people in day to day that they wear customarily, and this has no significance in religion.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, this is like the Sharia taking into consideration the urf. Yeah. Now with the term democracy as well, similarly we look at one because we're specifically talking about voting now. Yeah. So we think about what is the ruling on this aspect of democracy. Well, so this is so now So we look at now, is this does it have a religious significance?
Mm-hmm.
It's not religious, it doesn't have a religious significance.
Can I just ask you, when you're saying, to your understanding, it doesn't have a religious significance, are you saying then that this is coming from scholars for mentioning this issue?
Yes, the scholars, and the scholars, because voting for Muslims is a contemporary issue, so contemporary scholars has given fatwa on it.
Okay.
And you have many fatwa of many of the scholars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they mentioned that for example, one Hanafi alim, he's got a fatwa on this, and he clearly mentioned that. He explains this as well, that it's not religious matter. Okay. Remember, in Sharia as well, we have to understand that issues or matters, they fall into two different categories. Number one, ibadah, and secondly, they fall into things which are mu'amalat. Ibadah and mu'amalat. Okay. Ibadah is worship. Worship, and mu'amalat is our day-to-day life activities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and obviously, Brother Osman, what does selecting someone to become an MP? What is that? Is that religious? Is that a religious matter? Is that worship? Does it fall into worship?
Not the way you're explaining it. No.
No, it doesn't fall into worship.
Right.
Yeah. So one of the great principles in Islam is al-aslu fil ibadah at-tahdhir wa at-tahrim. That in ibadah, everything is, the general principle is that you cannot do any worship except which is the Sharia, unless you have a proof from the Sharia.
Okay.
Yeah. وَالْأَصْلُ فِي الْأَشْيَاءِ وَالْعَادَاتِ, and in daily matters is al-ibaha. In daily things, in life, dunyawi matters, is ibaha, is permissibility.
Okay. Can I just go back to the issue of representative? So there's an argument about wakala.
Yeah.
And what I am doing by voting is making Bob Jones, obviously it's not real, Bob Jones, giving him my vote, and I'm making him my wakil.
Yeah.
And now he goes in Parliament, and he, on my behalf now, begins to work within legislation, and they're legislating, etc., etc. So the question really is, do you accept the fact of wakala and the MP becoming your wakil? Do you understand that in the same sort of way?
It's not completely. It's like wakala.
Okay.
Voting is not completely like wakala. Okay. Voting is when you are choosing between two different people. One said they're going to do such and such, another said they're going to do such and such. And you select someone who will do the less, or who will be the best for you, for your circumstances. Okay? And obviously now, one of the things is now, because it's a worldly, is in Sharia as well, in Islam, okay? Action is by the intention. There's another very important principle a lot of people forget. So this is a worldly matter now. Whatever when you do a certain action, we judge it according to your intention, because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Innamal a'malu binniyat." And one of the great principles, qawaid al-fiqhiyya, one of the 5 major principles of the principles of fiqh is al-umuru bimaqasidiha. It's derived from this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, "Innamal a'malu binniyat." We judge an action by the intention. So when somebody, for example, they vote, we don't automatically assume that they believe that somebody is a legislator besides Allah. What do we do? According to the hadith, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, we look at the intention. If this person, his intention is that this person will do less harm, or this person will be more beneficial for the Muslim, for the community, etc., etc., and for this specific purpose, we're selecting him.
Okay. So
It doesn't automatically mean, and a lot of people, they automatically equate that you are endorsing every single action of that person because you vote for them. It doesn't, in the Sharia, it doesn't imply that.
okay,
And
so sorry to cut you there. So based on this topic here, this part of the topic, again on the issue of wakala, my intention is to vote Bob here because of the fact that he's pro-Palestinian and he voted for the ceasefire, etc. So my intention is I want to bring him in because he may be an asset to maybe again put in a vote for a ceasefire. Okay, that's my intention.
yeah,
However, he's the same Bob who's going to vote for legalization of same-sex marriages, education of LGBTQ, etc., and other things which negate the Sharia of Allah. So you're saying I will not be held responsible or accountable for those other aspects?
no,
Because
you're because of your intention. Your intention is not you are selecting him is not because he will vote for these things.
Okay.
You are voting for him because he's the better of the two candidates that's available to you.
Right. And if someone has an intention,
Because that's why it doesn't, just voting for someone, it doesn't automatically mean that you endorse everything. As the very important principle in Islam is that the actions are judged based on the intention. If your intention, if somebody said the intention was somebody to legislate, then that's clearly, obviously, that's not permissible. Anyone who has that intention, that's wrong intention.
I mean, let's be honest. Look, and this is a question I ask a lot of people. How many of you that are participating in this election have actually gone out and spoken to ulama, have read the fatwa to accept it is halal or haram or any of that nature? And many of them are working on emotion more than knowledge or asking the question.
Yeah, correct.
So my fear here
Sorry.
is they are not necessarily doing the right thing but asking the right questions.
Yeah.
And they're still going to go in and vote, but the intention might be just personal intention. Maybe for this guy, it might be good for my business.
Exactly.
Right? However, this person or this candidate has not voted for or doesn't have intention to vote for the ceasefire in Gaza, for example. But I am still doing it for my own personal reasons. Are you still saying that in that instance, because my intention is personally for myself, it is still permissible?
Yeah, that is still permissible. It is still permissible. It doesn't mean that you endorse everything. As I said, it doesn't mean that you endorse everything they're doing.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but you should seek advice from Muslims who are well versed and knowledgeable about political matters, because not everyone is knowledgeable about every aspect of the knowledge and etc. and different worldly matters. Okay. So people should seek advice from organizations and individuals who are knowledgeable about these things.
I mean,
and obviously, the person who shouldn't just think about his own personal gains when he's voting for a candidate, obviously, because he's think about the wider implications for his community as well, and that's very important.
Going on the basis of the scholars in this country, majority of the ulama are of the opinion you should participate in elections and you should vote. There's two schools of thought. One is saying you should vote. The other school of thought, I'm not saying madhab in that sense, but I'm saying
opinion.
Yeah, opinion.
Yeah.
The other school of thought is that it's wajib. You are sinful if you don't vote, right?
Yeah.
Now the way I look at it is this: the very country that we are in is giving us a choice to vote or not to vote. But then we have ulama that's saying if you don't vote, you're sinful, right?
Yeah.
What about from the past, ulama? Have they given fatawas? Because I don't remember 20 years ago hearing so many fatawas from ulama saying you should vote, it's fard to vote, you're sinful if you don't. Why is there such a big hoo-ha now for the push for the Muslim vote, in your opinion?
I think, you know, it's always existed. There's been ulama who has been saying that you must vote. Yeah, but you know, sometimes maybe we didn't pay attention to it. Sometimes that's what it is as well. You know, for example, you know, yesterday, you know, I shared a fatwa on you know, even Sheikh Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he said when he was asked about elections and voting, he said that it is obligatory. Sheikh Uthaymeen, he passed away more than 20 years ago.
For the Western countries?
Yeah, for generally, he said,
yeah.
He said, you know, to put candidates forward who will, you know, implement what is good, and who will help, you know, etc., and reduce, you know, harm and corruption, etc.
It's quite surprising to hear the opinion of Sheikh Uthaymeen.
Yeah, and obviously, and this is all
20 years ago.
Yeah, more than 20 years ago. And obviously, and this is based on a principle, you know, principle in Islam, qawaid. Okay, is also one of the five universal qawaid. It's called qawaid al-kulliyah and qawaid al-fiqhiyah. And it's called ad-dararu yuzal. That anything that is harmful, it should be removed. Okay, and it's a very important principle as well for us. We need as Muslims, we need to study, and we need to learn about these, you know, these principles. And obviously, if we don't know the principles of Sharia, we've not studied it. Sometimes it's better not to, you know, delve into different, you know, like fatwa issues and etc. But you see, this was based upon a very strong principle. Okay, you know, for example, Al-Izz ibn Abdul Salam, in fact, he has an entire book on this qawaid. Okay, and he says that the entire wahi, the revelation, was the intention of the entire revelation was removing harm. You see, that's how strong this principle is. And you know, and there's and there's another principle which this fatwa is based on. ما لا يتم الواجب إلا به فهو واجب. That if you are not able to do something which is obligatory except with that thing, then that thing becomes obligatory. So if there is harm that's going to come to the Muslim community, it is obligatory on the Muslim to remove the harm from themselves. And if it's by voting, then the voting becomes obligatory. So it's based upon, you know, very established principles from Islam.
But that's going to be problematic, because the question now is going to be, how do you determine the harm on the Muslim community? So my example is this. Our forefathers came to this country. My father came in 1961. There's plenty of brothers I know, their fathers came before that. Okay, so let's just say 1950s onwards. When they came, the intention was for them to work 10 years, 20 years and go back to their, you know, relative country, wherever they came from. But they end up staying here, children born here, first generation, second generation, etc. They became a part of society, even though a lot of society didn't like them at that time, but they became a part of British society. Yep. And they established themselves. Masajids were established. The madaris were established here. And halal food was established. So we have a strong Muslim community since 1950s. But that was done without the help of MPs. That was done without the help in that sense. Okay? Yes, when there were many racist attacks upon the African community, the South Asian community, then they pressed the councillors, they pressed the MPs in their local areas to help them. But not necessarily voting them in, right? So the question here now is there a difference between applying pressure to MPs to go in the House of Parliament and discuss those matters and voting? Is there a difference between those two things, do you think?
You know, one of the things, yeah, Akhi Uthman, is that there are different ways, and voting is one of the ways. So, for example, like if you have an MP who is, say, in favor of Muslim community, they want to build, they want to get planning permission for building a masjid, for example, and he's someone who is going to help get that planning permission, for example, or for example, in our time, from foreign policy, for example, there are MPs who are against certain foreign policy, and there will be people who will be speaking out. If they're elected, they'll be in parliament speaking out against these unjust foreign policies. So so it does matter who we elect, who gets elected to the parliament. So the voting is one of the ways that we are able to have our say.
But do you see a difference, like mentioned once before, that Sahaba, the Prophet's companion, used to go to the chiefs of the Quraysh and ask them, or put pressure on them to change their certain ways? You could say it's a policy. Yeah. Now, is that a different to what we see today? As, say, example, I am with a particular organization and we are trying to apply pressure to the government to say, you've got to change your policy on this. Is that a difference between that and voting? So what I'm trying to say is that I am not going to vote, but I am with organization B, who is going to the parliament and trying to apply vocal pressure upon the MPs and the government. Are those two different things in your eyes?
If I be honest, as I said, applying pressure is in different ways, and obviously, it's from the origin of what you believe voting to be. Okay, I believe voting to be permissible. Yeah, and so I believe this is one of the ways of applying pressure, or having your voice heard.
Okay, so really, what you're saying is, it comes down to your intention.
Your intention.
And B, how you understand democracy, how you understand legislation.
Yes.
So for those that say, look, democracy is a non-Islamic, it is a kufr system, and it is something that is for the people, by the people, and because it's man-made, we cannot participate in it. Because of the various verses of the Quran, as I mentioned before, those who do not rule by Allah are dhalim, fasiq, kafir, etc., etc.
Yeah, you see, these are referring to people. These ayahs are referring to people who had the option of applying the rulings Allah revealed to them, but they rejected it, and they looked for ways to avoid it.
Right.
Okay. If you look at Surah Al-Ma'idah, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. These ayahs, this is what it's referring to. It's referring to the Jews in Medina at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. They had the rulings that Allah revealed to them, but they turned away from it. They didn't want to apply it. Okay. Or for example, أَفَحُكْمَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ يَبْغُونَ وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ حُكْمًا لِقَوْمِ يُوقِنُونَ. Sorry if maybe I'm forgetting the exact wording of the ayah, but this ayah, for example, أَفَحُكْمَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ يَبْغُونَ. Allah saying, are you seeking a different hukum, the hukum of jahiliyyah? When you have the hukum of Allah. This is referring to the hypocrites who had the option of going back to the hukum of Allah, but they turned away.
So you're saying that doesn't apply here?
Yeah, because obviously we don't have the option. And as I said, the ruling system is from the worldly matters, and voting is just a part of the ruling system. We're just selecting a person. It's like saying you have two colleagues or non-Muslim colleagues. One said, I will do this, another said, I will do that. And obviously you choose the one that's better. Obviously he also does wrong as well, certain things. Because you chose him doesn't mean that you agree with everything he does.
Yeah.
Because in Islam, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. And this is a very important principle in Islam.
But isn't that principle
in
a general
and it applies
principle?
applies in ibadah and mu'amalat, this principle. Yeah? For example, I'll give you an example now. Sajda. If somebody does sajda, okay, if a Muslim does sajda, what is the ruling on that person? Is this person a kafir or is he still a Muslim? Okay, what the scholars have said, we have to look at his intention. If his intention is greeting, because some cultures, and even in the previous shari'as, okay, it was a form of greeting. Like we have the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, when kharru sujjada, when his family came to him in Egypt, they fell prostrate to him.
Subhanallah.
Yeah. So did they commit kufr? No. This was in that sharia of Yusuf alayhi salam, that was a form of greeting. But in our sharia, that is haram. We look at the intention. And where is sajda and where is voting? You are just selecting someone to represent, because you want a particular benefit. Sajda is from the crux of ibadah, but it still is based upon, we judge it based on intention.
Okay. So just going back on the issue of legislation, for those that believe that it could be shirk. Now this is from the government website, the legislative process. Once a bill has been debated, then approved by each House of Parliament, and has received royal assent, it becomes law and is known as an act. Any member of the Parliament can introduce a bill. Some bills represent agreed government policy, and these are introduced into Parliament by ministers. So the argument here now, for those that believe it could be shirk, that they are committing shirk on your behalf because of legislation. So the hukm is to none but Allah. This is an argument. What do you think of that?
Okay, as I said from the outset, that we believe Allah is the ultimate legislator. This is our aqidah. Okay, and this is in the Quran. Allah says, "Inil hukmu illa lillah, wa la yushriku fi hukmihi ahada." Allah doesn't. Allah is in hukmu illa lillah. Allah is the only one that can legislate. Allah does not share in it. Wa la yushriku fi hukmihi ahada. He doesn't share anyone in his hukum with anyone else. He doesn't share his hukum with anyone else. So we believe that. But when we're talking about voting, as we said, we are voting for a specific individual for a specific benefit. Voting doesn't imply that we agree with everything, or we agree with or imply something else other than our intention. Because إنما الأعمال بالنيات. Very important to understand. And a lot of, that's why personally I haven't come across a single bona fide scholar that said voting is shirk, or anybody who votes is a mushrik, or any of this kind of thing. And some brothers, they are misquoting. They are comparing apples and oranges. I would say they're comparing apples and oranges.
Okay.
Yeah, they're getting fatwa where the scholars they're talking about tashri', or they're talking about He's al-Hakim. What does the implications of that? they're getting these fatwa, and they're saying, so this is, say for example, orange, and then they're saying apple. This is same ruling on apple. Voting is the same thing, because you're denying Allah is hakim.
Right.
You're denying Allah, in al hukm illa lillah.
Okay.
But voting is apple, and this fatwa is talking about oranges.
Right.
It's not the same. The qiyas is two different things.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Because it would not make sense. The Sharia to say just selecting someone according to Islamic the rules and principles, it doesn't make sense. Just because you select someone for a particular thing that you agree with everything they do, that's a form of dhulm, really. Allah said, وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةُ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. Allah doesn't hold you responsible for somebody else's actions.
Right. So are you individually now, talking about you, are you 110% convinced with this issue of voting and that you should participate in it? Islamically, from Dalil, are you 100% convinced?
100%. If you ask me, I do not, as some, it says there's khilaf, but personally, if you ask me, my opinion, there's no khilaf amongst the scholars on this. That I personally know of. Brothers keep saying khilaf, but personally, I haven't come across that khilaf.
You mentioned Sheikh Uthaymeen. Sheikh bin Baz.
Sheikh bin Baz, yes.
Also said that it's permissible to vote.
Yeah. It's basically, they said because what you are helping in good. وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. On good things, you work together, you cooperate, and you don't cooperate on bad things. This is also from the ayahs, which some of the principles are derived from.
If we look at the other schools of thoughts, the Hanafi, Deobandis, etc. Now, in the UK, I would say majority of them are of the opinion that you should vote, and they are quite pushing it.
Yeah.
But you've got some South African Deobandi Hanafis which are really against it, really anti. Okay. And I remember a few years ago, some of the brothers were using their fatwas here and what have you.
Okay.
But I don't hear much of that. So before, there used to be this thing that, there's a difference between the Salafi scholars, if you want to say Salafi scholars, and the Hanafi Deobandi scholars, right? Or the Sufi scholars, if people want to use that term. But we don't see much of that in the UK at the moment. We're seeing a general consensus of scholars in this country, but we hear a lot of brothers making takfir upon those scholars, because what they're saying is the scholars, the ulama, are inviting people to commit shirk, and therefore this person has left the fold of Islam. What is your thoughts on that?
I think that is quite dangerous, and that's speaking without knowledge. If they feel so strongly about this, they should go and speak to the ulama. Those ulama that are saying this, they should go and speak to them about this, and ask them where are the evidences, what principles, and etc. Where the text that you used to come to this conclusion that voting is permissible, and some of the scholars, they said, is obligatory as well. So they should go and sit with them, spend some time understanding this issue properly, let it simmer, then finally come to a conclusion. Because what happens is sometimes what brothers do is they already have a preconceived idea, and they already have their evidences, their own evidences that they used, and everything else, in psychologically is blocked out.
Right.
So anything else doesn't get the time of the day for them to understand.
But that's the general thing with human beings. When they are stuck on their understanding, their opinions, is very hard to push people, and that's where you have to be open-minded and balanced at the same time. So I know I'm going to have a lot of feedback saying, why are you having this discussion? You shouldn't be bringing on people like yourself.
Yeah.
Sorry to say. And because this is someone who's promoting elections. But hear me out, because we need to hear arguments from both sides. Yeah. And any of the guests that have come so far, yourself and the brother before, you are not scholars of Islam.
No,
right?
Not even close.
We just having a simple discussion. We're coming towards the end of the session. Firstly, what are your last kind of points on this issue? And then I'm going to ask you the final question. Are there any last bits and pieces in your mind that you think are relevant and important for the Muslim community to understand regarding elections?
Okay, what I think is, what I personally think and want to say on this is that it's very important that people go to the people of knowledge and get their verdicts on this, because this is the issue involves the maslaha and the masalih of the Muslim community as a whole. Whatever opinion we that we take will have an impact in our community. And also it's quite dangerous as well that we're when you take a wrong stance and you're playing with taking Muslims outside the fold of Islam and etc., and calling ulama mushriks, that's what it's implying.
Yeah.
You're calling ulama mushriks, you're calling other Muslim mushriks, and obviously, as I said, these things will have an effect in our community. So it's very important that Muslims, that you go, if you have a different opinion, if you don't understand this issue and you want to understand, go to people who are learned. People go to ulama and sit with them and try to ask questions about it, about the aspects that are not clear to you.
Last question, are you voting tomorrow?
Inshallah.
Okay.
Inshallah.
I was going to ask you who you're voting for, but I don't think you can tell us that anyway.
No.
And we can't really put that
I don't want to mention that. I don't want to mention that.
No, because the reason why I'm asking is because the fact that you believe it's permissible, you are confident, you have your dalil, then it shouldn't be a problem for anyone to say yes, they are voting. But obviously I'd advise the brothers not to start making takfir on you.
Yes, I forgot to also mention as well. For example, one of the examples of that Allah brings the Quran or the prophets is Yusuf alayhi salam.
Mm-hmm. And
you know what, Yusuf alayhi salam, he worked in a non-Muslim government.
Mm-hmm.
And Allah calls Yusuf alayhi salam, he is the one, he says, Inil hukmu illa lillah.
Okay.
In Surah Yusuf, when he's speaking to the prisoners.
Right.
Okay, his prison, the prisoners that was with him in the prison, whose dreams is interpreted when he's doing dawah to them. He's the one that says, Inil hukmu illa lillah, Yusuf alayhi salam. And he's the one that asked to work in the non-Muslim government. Okay, and based on this, some of the scholars, when they commented on this, like Al-Qurtubi rahimahullah, Imam Al-Qurtubi, the famous mufassir of the Quran, he says it is permissible for a Muslim to work in an non-Muslim, in an unjust government, if he could make things better. Ibn Taymiyyah even says he can be a Muslim, he can be a judge in a non-Muslim court if he can reduce the harms and corruption. If you can bring justice, if you can show justice. Ibn Taymiyyah is saying this. Ibn Taymiyyah also, he's the one that a Muslim, he can work in a non-Muslim government.
Okay, I personally was not aware of this.
Yeah, Al-Iz ibn Abd Salam, for example, one of the great ulama, Sultan ulama, they call him. Mm-hmm. They call him the kingmaker.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he also mentions, and many ulama, okay, they mention that a Muslim is permissible for them to work in a unjust or a non-Muslim government. Okay, so what is the difference? Logically, what is worse, voting for someone who is going to bring some benefit, or working in the system itself? Then and even Taymiyyah was one of the is seen as one of the harsher of mutashaddidin amongst the ulama.
But would you not see a difference between working in a government, like a civil servant that's still working for a government? You might be working for a local council, but when you look at your email address as a Muslim working there, it could be Muhammad at so and so, but it's .gov.uk, so you're working for the government. Is that not different from being an MP? This is what some of the arguments will be, that you can work for a government, you can get paid by a government, okay, but then again, is that not different in being a part of a legislation?
So if you are facilitating a non-Muslim government, what's worse, facilitating it or voting for picking a particular individual?
So you're saying
so do you see the logic now?
Yeah, right. So you're saying there's not a difference, really?
Yes. And also there's a very important principle as well. Okay? A lot of people, they say, no, this was a previous Sharia.
Yeah.
When they mention Yusuf alayhi salam. But in Aqidah, you cannot have previous Sharia. Aqidah issues, shirk and tawheed doesn't get abrogated. Doesn't get abrogated. It cannot. In Aqidah issues, there's no such thing as abrogation. Either there's angels or there's no angels. Either there's hellfire and paradise, or there isn't a fire paradise. You see, so in Aqidah we don't have. So in Aqidah, in Tawheed, so these kind of things, there is no Shara man qablana, there is no previous Sharia, etc. So it means that there is something, we understood it wrong.
So what you're saying is really there needs to be a lot more education on this.
There needs to be a lot more education on this, yes.
And I do.
And that's why it's very important that we, first of all, we as Muslims, we be careful. What we say, who we take our knowledge from, and also we try to educate ourselves before we speak, and from credible scholars. Because there's loads of people who are there speaking and etc. But not everyone is a recognized scholar by other ulama. And I said this is very important for everyone, really, even the youth. And
look, at the end of the day, realities are always changing, and with every generation, reality will change.
Sahih.
We've established ourselves here. Many of us born here, children, grandchildren. We sometimes look at certain masajids and we see that they were other places of worship before. For example, Masjid Ramadan, Shakawa Lane, it was actually a synagogue before.
Sahih.
Now it's a masjid since 1970s. What would become of that masjid in 50 years' time, 100 years' time? We hope, inshallah, it stays as a masjid.
Inshallah.
But we don't know. Communities can move out of the area. Communities can move on. There could be a decrease of communities in certain areas.
Sahih.
We like it or not, we are a part of the system. We are part of society.
Society, exactly.
Now, some of us may argue, I am not paying my taxes to the government. They are taking it from my wages. Okay? However, whatever way it is, it's still going to the government.
It's still going to the government, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And also the arguments some brothers use, for example, we don't vote, we protest. So you believe in part of the system and you don't believe in part of the system.
Yeah, but I think that comes down to the understanding of what is.
No, but you see, the thing is when you are protesting, you are requesting in this part of the system, you are asking from the legislator to make legislation which is in your favor.
Yeah.
Or to make policies which is in your favor. So in effect, you're doing the same thing.
Just without voting.
Yeah. You're just using a different name for it. Effectively.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it seems like. You know, if you're going
Effectively,
to
yeah.
apply certain pressure,
Yeah.
some might see it as it's the same sort of pressure
Yeah.
without
Or
the vote.
the petitions, for example, similar
Yeah,
thing.
who are you petitioning?
Yeah, we're petitioning. You're asking the parliament to discuss your MPs to discuss the issue that you are raising thing on.
Well, we're going to have to stop there. So there you have it. You heard both sides of the argument. Tomorrow's the big day, the election day. So make up your mind if you're voting or not voting, if you see it's haram, halal, shirk or not. But my advice to everyone is there's no point in continually debating or arguing for the sake of arguing. If you think you can make a point, make that point clearly and leave the takfir to the ulama, because that's not our job. Brother Sawar, Jazakumullahu khairan for coming.
Barakallah fiqh.
And inshallah, we see you. You're more than welcome to come any other time to discuss.
Jazakallah
any
khair.
other. Barakallahu feek. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam.